as we continue our coverage from here in Great Falls at this year's Montana Grain Growers Association annual convention. Again, as we've been mentioning all week long on our radio, television, and digital media products, this year jointly hosted with our friends from the Northern Pulse Growers Association and PNW Canola Association. We also want to give a special shout out to our friends at Nutrien Ag Solutions for sponsoring the Western Ag Network's coverage this week from the Montana Grain Growers Convention here in Great Falls. Again, Nutrien Ag Solutions, more than just a seed company. Learn more at nutrienseed.com. Well, this week there have been so many highlights here at the MGGA convention, but one that I have been waiting for is a fireside chat of sorts with the leaders of the National Association of Wheat Growers, the USA Dry Pea and Lintel Council, along with the U.S. Canola Association. I'm having the opportunity to moderate that panel here in Great Falls, and with us now on this conversation is the National Association of Wheat Growers Chief Executive Officer, Chandler Goule. And Chandler, we're going to talk a lot about some important issues in the wheat industry that you're going to be talking to folks here in Great Falls about in just a second or so, but we need to let folks know, in addition to this being one of your highlights coming out to Big Sky Country, you're also very much excited to maybe try your hand, try your luck, and have the opportunity to try out some of Montana's snow.
Well, you know, I've been coming out here to Montana for 12, 13 years now, in between two different jobs, and I've never actually had the opportunity to snow ski out here, and I usually ski between 200 and 300 miles a year, and so I'm very excited to go down to Big Sky this weekend. I am going to have to get a face mask because I didn't bring one because I think it's going to be 19 degrees on Friday when we're skiing, but very excited.
Which is actually warmer than where this convention actually started.
Yeah, this place is cold. It's like 7 right now, I think.
Well, I saw a post. You were skiing back home in West Virginia last week, and I said, gosh, you're going to bring your skis out here to Montana, and that was one of the first things that you said. Absolutely.
Oh, yes. It looks like I'm moving here. I have 3 huge pieces of luggage with me for a 4-day trip, but very much looking forward to the weekend, but really looking forward to the opportunity we had this week to spend with our Montana wheat growers here at their annual convention.
Well, over the years, you and I have done lots of different interviews. I mean, prior to you becoming the CEO at the National Association of Wheat Growers, you and I did radio and TV interviews when you were with the National Farmers Union. Now you're in this position. Just briefly, kind of tell us a little bit about who Chandler Goule is and how you even got interested in this big old agriculture industry.
Well, you know, I actually went to school at Texas A&M and got a degree in animal science. And a lot of people don't know this, but I have a double minor in reproductive physiology and genetics. So clearly I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. Somehow I ended up into politics and living in Washington, D.C. This month will be 23 years. I've been in D.C. working in agriculture and food policy. I spent 10 years on Capitol Hill. I was very fortunate to work for Charlie Stenholm, one of the lead Blue Dog Democrats and ranking member on the House Ag Committee. But I spent the bulk of my permanent time on Capitol Hill with Chairman Colin Peterson and was on the House Agriculture Committee, did livestock and dairy issues there, and then slowly maneuvered through the Farmers Union, and then have been with the National Association of Wheat Growers for a little over 6.5 years now as their CEO. So it's been a very exciting career.
Yeah, it has, and NOG and the state associations are very lucky to have guys and gals like you representing them every single day back there on Capitol Hill, representing the National Association of Wheat Growers. So with that all said, then, Chandler, I mean, just it's always busy back on Capitol Hill, but moving into 2023, I mean, just give our viewers and our listeners an idea of like what are some of the top priority issues you're going to be working on behalf of NOG and all those wheat growers across America.
Well, the most immediate thing, not even going into 2023, is whether or not Congress is going to, or the Senate's going to take up a bill to avoid this rail strike that is going to be very detrimental not only to the agriculture sector but into the entire economy. As you know, yesterday the House of Representatives passed a bill to solidify the agreement that was already put forward. We're expecting the Senate to act, I think, sometime this week or next week. So that's something really immediate that we're working on. Then when we hop into next year, of course, we've got to look to continue to fund the government so it doesn't shut down. And then when the new Congress comes back, we'll have a House of Representatives that will be controlled by the Republican Party. I think that will set into motion new hearings for the Farm Bill, which is going to be clearly the priority for 23. I'm also going to say 24. I hate to say 25, but there's a chance it could get extended that long just because of where both of the chambers are right now.
Yeah, nothing, as we all know, moves very fast when it comes to Washington, D.C. and policymakers. You know, you touched on that rail strike. Let's just go back to that for just a minute or so, because that is the most pressing issue right now for America's ag industry, both on the livestock side and on the grain and commodity side. The number I have heard and have been telling people here at this convention is if that strike goes through, we're talking about a hit to the U.S. economy of at least $2 billion a day. Is that real?
That's very real, and that's the numbers that we're seeing not only from the rail companies, but from some of the other larger organizations that do the economic analysis. But if you want to bring it back specifically more to wheat, 75% of all U.S. wheat at some point in its lifetime will be on rail at some point. So if we have a rail strike, you will be hitting 3/4 of the wheat that we produce, whether it's heading to the Pacific Northwest, if we're trying to get it to other mills across the United States. It's going to hit wheat very hard if we're not able to avoid this strike.
Yeah, it's a serious issue, and not just NOG, but I think every agricultural, livestock, commodity organization across America and really beyond is working on this, because it doesn't just impact folks here in America. I mean, it could potentially affect all of North America and the world, as you mentioned, if we can't get those high quality ag products that we're raising out here in states like Montana and across America around the world to those important export markets.
It even goes further than just commodities and goods and services. So Amtrak has already reached out to me, knowing that wheat is a major commodity on the rail. Well, they have to share, passenger rail has to share it with commercial rail. And if we're going to have a strike and you've got commercial trains stopped, then you've got passenger rail that's being stopped as well. And so this goes even beyond goods and services, but also could affect moving people around the country as well.
So let's go back to the Farm Bill now that we'll eventually start tackling in the new year with that new Congress you mentioned. What's your message, I guess, here to these grain growers and pulse growers and other canola commodity growers that are attending this convention? What are NOG's key priorities going to be next year?
So NOG set our priorities for the 23 Farm Bill at the last Commodity Classic, and we'll review those again at this Commodity Classic. And right now, as you and I are visiting, Montana grain growers are going over their resolutions that they will bring to NOG, and then we'll eventually meld those in with the other 20 states that we work with. But I mean, clearly our number one issue that came out was maintaining crop insurance, maybe being able to expand some of the products that our growers have access to, especially as we continue to have such adverse and I would just say violent weather, whether it's tornadoes or winds or hurricanes that keep coming through. So that's going to be our top priority. We're also going to work to see if we can't get additional budget authority. That's going to be very difficult to get more money in the Farm Bill, no matter which party is in control. But when we were looking at the PLC price at $5.50 for wheat, that is nowhere close to what the cost of production is anymore. And so we find that that's really not a backstop anymore when you've got cost of production $6.50, $7.50, depending on where you're at and what you're growing there. And then another key thing we're going to stay focused on is making sure that our conservation programs stay voluntary and that they serve the farmer and not the food companies that I'm worried about, that they are going to come and lobby on the Title II programs of what they want the conservation programs to look like so they meet their sustainability goals, and not actually talking to the farmer of whether or not this is even workable and can you still turn a profit if this is what the new program looks like. So that's just a worry that's in the back of my mind, but we will be vigilant to make sure that these programs work for our wheat growers.
Well, and really just making sure wheat has a seat at the table, because there's a lot of other larger agricultural commodity organizations out there that are going to be around that table fighting tooth and nail for those dollars that we're hoping to have available for wheat growers and barley growers out here in this neck of the woods. What can farmers out here in Western Ag Network country, I mean, what should their mission be, Chandler, between now and during the Farm Bill process, and hopefully, sooner rather than later, wrapping up a Farm Bill that is beneficial to them? What should they be doing?
So, I mean, there's several, but the most important thing you can do as a grower is to call your congressman here in the state, ask to go meet with them, or ask to do Zoom. They do Zoom a lot, but they really want to hear from you as the individual grower, saying, I am a constituent, I live in your district, and here are the things that are important to me in the Farm Bill. First, that you vote for the Farm Bill. I mean, Over a third of the House of Representatives will have never even voted on a farm bill, don't even know what's actually in a farm bill. Montana picking up a new congressional seat this year. There's a good chance that new member has not actually worked directly into a farm bill, whether they're on the committee or not. And then, of course, attending any meetings that you can. Montana grain growers coming to our winter board meeting for NAG in January, where we all have our big Hill Day and go lobby all of our NAG office states, and just really making your voice be heard, because they really want to hear from you as the grower. They like to hear from me and my staff at NAG, but you as the grower who can actually vote for them has the biggest impact.
Yeah, it really does. Kind of gets back to that whole concept of like where society is at now when it comes to food production and wanting to know where their food comes from, having that relationship with their farmer and rancher. Much could really be said about having a better relationship with their elected official, whether it's here in Montana with a new legislature set to go into session the first part of January, or back in Washington, D.C. One of my messages during our fireside chat here in Great Falls with you and Tim and Andrew with the U.S. Canola Association is going to be, can you explain to this audience and our audience, truly the benefits of belonging to a state association and why it's important for the state association and even some of these growers to become a member of the national association, like the National Association of Wheat Growers, because so many times it's like, oh, I don't need to pay my dues, somebody else can do it. Talk about, from your perspective, what you've seen over the years in the industry and working in Capitol Hill and with these different congressional and Senate leaders back there and different administrations, Chandler. I mean, the importance of having a voice and becoming more involved and becoming an activist in your own industry.
Well, it's critical. We kind of made a little joke earlier that things move slow in Washington, but sometimes they go very quickly. Yeah. Like Congress voting on to avoid this rail strike literally started earlier this week. The House has already voted on it. The Senate's going to take it up next week. And so when you belong to the Montana Grain Growers Association and they belong to the National Association of Wheat Growers, well, if I was a good baseball player, I could hit the Capitol with a baseball. But since I'm not, I can literally be in the Senate or the House offices within 10 or 15 minutes. And there has been more times than I can count on my hand, especially when we're debating a farm bill, when the ranking or the chair of the Senate or House Ag Committee has said, you need to be up here in the next hour. We're dividing up Title I right now, and here's the money. And the fact that our office is right next to the Capitol and to the Senate office buildings, we are your voice there. Unfortunately, we can't bring a Montana farmer, fly them to D.C. in time to make it to that meeting, but we can go on your behalf. And that's why it's so important that you belong to a state organization and then to the national organization, because then I can easily call one of my Montana wheat growers, ask, where is this going to affect y'all? We're going to meet with your maybe Senator Tester or whoever else that day. How is this directly affecting you? And then we literally go advocate on your behalf. And that's how we can guarantee that your voice is constant in Washington, D.C. when you can't always physically be there yourself.
Yeah. So I think the take-home message from Chandler is pay your dues to your state associations, and if you feel so inclined, become a member of a national association of your liking. Doesn't have to be any of the ones we've mentioned today, but just actively become involved in your industry, right?
Exactly. If it wasn't for the growers that make up our board of directors and make up the Montana Grain Growers Association, my granddad was a dryland wheat farmer in the panhandle of Texas. That was in the 40s and 50s. So my knowledge of actual direct on farming is not the best. But what I do know is advocacy, policy implications, how to make that applicable to the farmer. But really, we need your voice and run this by you. Would this work on your farm? Would you still be able to make a profit? Is this going to increase your cost of production? And it's important that we have those voices. And really, I would encourage you, too, to take media training, learn to get in front of a camera, and come to Washington and run for an office within those organizations, because we need strong leaders with good farming backgrounds, but also understand policy and how to talk to the media.
And sometimes it's even as simple as just writing a letter to the editor in your local newspaper or writing an educated post on social media anymore, and really acknowledging what the issue is and letting others hear your expertise, which the farmer and rancher is the real expert of their own industry. Chandler, thank you so much for coming out to Big Sky Country.
Thank you.
And I certainly wish you a fun and safe skiing trip down at Big Sky.
I appreciate it.
It's going to be a trip that you're going to forever remember. I know that.
Everybody keeps telling me it's a great mountain, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of fun. Again, we've been talking with Chandler Goule, the National Association of Wheat Growers Chief Executive Officer, just one of the many leaders that have joined us this week here in Great Falls for the joint convention between the Montana Grain Growers Association, the Northern Pulse Growers Association, and of course the PNW Canola Association. You know, all three associations and their grower members and leaders collectively working together out here in the Pacific Northwest and Northern Plains, because after all, at the end of the day, we're all just truly one big happy family that we call agriculture. One more shout out to our friends at Nutrien Ag Solutions. Again, they've been sponsoring our coverage from this week's MGGA convention here in Great Falls. For more of our coverage, you can either tune in on radio or television or check us out at westernagnetwork.com or simply visit our Facebook page. Well, it's been a busy week here in Great Falls at the Montana Grain Growers Association's joint convention held this year with the Northern Pulse Growers Association and PNW Canola Association. Of course, we've covered a lot of important topics for farmers across Western Ag Network country this week, and the trade show has also been very valuable for attendees to find out some of those latest and greatest in ag technology products and services available for 2023 to hopefully allow us to be a little bit more profitable in the new year. Now with us on today's program is Tim Hartwell with Nutrien Ag Solutions, and we want to say a big thank you to Nutrien Ag Solutions for sponsoring Western Ag Network's coverage this week here in Great Falls. We've been able to do a lot of important interviews, and earlier this week Lane interviewed and talked with Mitch Euro with Nutrien about some of the exciting stuff going on at your company. We're going to follow that up with this interview, Tim. And, you know, we've been telling folks at home that Nutrien Ag Solutions is so much more than just a seed company now. Maybe just follow that up and just describe all the different tools that you have available for today's grower.
Sure. We actually handle chemistry. We deal with some tropical direct fertility. Our chemistry line is Loveland, and they have a great line of herbicides and surfactants and liquid nutritionals. And we key off of that. We can send one of the salesmen out to seed farmers, and they've got not only seed that they can sell and pick out their best seed varieties for them, but also they have chemistry that we can put on that to protect that crop. And we deal with fertility. What's really kind of neat about the team that I've hired is everyone's kind of has their specialty. Katie Emerson's very good with our digital part of this. So when we have a farmer inquiring about our digital program, we get her in front of them. Our carbon program has really expanded over the last year. And Lyle Benjamin has really taken the lead of the carbon program. So today during the program, during this trade show, we've had a lot of producers bring up this carbon deal. It's so new, and there's such a lack of knowledge that I feel it sets us apart having a professional in this carbon field, and it gets us out in the kitchen tables.
Well, it certainly opens up a whole new discussion and gets us thinking outside of the traditional way of trying to stay in business in farming and ranching. I mean, describe a little bit about the carbon program, because it is another option for a little bit of extra income, because I know we've been faced with drought out here in states like Montana these past couple of years, but we have had a wheat market that has been just absolutely phenomenal, but that's going to go away.
Yep.
You know, we all know that's not going to be the way it is forever. And so I think as farmers, don't we have to start thinking about some other tools out there that we can maybe capture a little bit extra income off of, and at the same time maybe satisfy this society out there that wants more sustainability out of all of us, even though we don't know what that definition is, right? But you guys at Nutrien Ag Solutions, you're trying to help at least start that discussion.
Right. You know, and I think it's kind of funny watching this develop this last year. They're kind of making the rules as they go and feeling their way along with this carbon program. Getting people interested. It's about a little bit of nitrogen reduction. The rules aren't real hard and firm. We're learning. And I just kind of turned Lyle loose with that, and he's done a great job. We have, for instance, if Katie has a customer that's inquiring about it, Lyle will go with her and he'll do the carbon part of it, and Katie will handle the rest. I've got a great sales group that everyone works together. Really appreciate it because we have producers that want to know what the next great forage variety is, and so we can steer them to the niche. Our seed specialists, Austin and Sam, are great. I don't know how many times I have farmers call me up and say, "What's the next seed variety I should use?" And I say, "I know the guy that can tell you this." So we've got a great team of people that are working on all three shelves as far as fertility, seed, and crop protection products, and taking that as a package right to the market.
Think about where we've come with the industry. I mean, back in the day, you and I have been at this for a long time. For forever, I thought we would just do products and services, kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. But with technology, the amount of research dollars that companies like Nutrien Ag Solutions is doing and investing in research with whatever area with the portfolio of your company, we're able to customize programs now for individual operations versus this one-size-fits-all, which very seldomly works for everyone.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And a good example of that is our digital program. It's amazing the steps that we've made just in the last 3 years I've been with Nutrien. Our farmers can pay their bill online. We can set them up with the cropping program. It leads into going out and doing agronomy work and mapping their fields and everything. Our seed producers, we map all of their fields, so we know where the fields are and what's happening there, and it all kind of just ties together. And I just kind of learn as I go, as far as listening to Katie and Lyle and those guys. I just kind of keep the herd together. It's funny how our carbon program is kind of tying in with our digital program. Everything kind of falls together. But it is amazing how far farming has come. And it's all about efficiencies. It's crazy because these younger salespeople, they communicate in a different way than we did. I used to drive out to the farm and sit down and have coffee with them. Now with digital texting and stuff like that, there's so many more efficiencies.
Sometimes old guys like me and Tim feel like we're behind the power curve, but we really aren't. We're generations ahead of where our granddads and great-granddads were in this business. And another key component of the overall success and what you have to offer to farmers and ranchers are your field days every summer, not just here in the Golden Triangle, but across the state. Talk about those and the importance and why you guys still make the investment to invite farmers and ranchers out to see what you guys are up to.
That's huge. I believe that we put on some of the best field days in the state. Wheat breeder Dale down in Bozeman is phenomenal. We're always working on getting new, better varieties out to the farmer. We have a breeding facility in Belgrade there. They come out and put our plots in. We're hoping to have a plot in Chester possibly this year. And those field days are huge. The farmers want to come out. They can compare one variety right next to another, how they look. This year, as droughty as it was, some of the drought-tolerant varieties really stood out, where they wouldn't necessarily on a normal year. So it's just a lot of research and data that we collect. Ryan Holt heads all that up. He's the division seed manager, and he does a great job with that. He makes us look pretty good. So we can get our seed specialists out there. They talk about all the individual varieties during those field days, and those are probably bigger than our grower meetings in the winter. We have a huge turnout of those, and so we know that the demand is out there for more knowledge and better varieties and stuff like that.
Well, I think farmers are figuring out that they have to do things a little bit differently than what their granddad and great-granddad did, just to remotely have the chance to stay in business. I mean, kind of what I said earlier, you guys are making the investment to provide all these tools and new products and services, and it's up to them ultimately to learn about them and then take them home and implement them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about squeezing every dollar we can out of that acre, and the most efficient means. It's pretty amazing the way farming is going. And they're talking about autonomous tractors and stuff like that in the future. It's just crazy.
What else you've been visiting with folks here at the Grain Growers this week as you start to wind 2022 down and look at the new year? I mean, what were some of the questions that maybe some of the guys and gals that stopped by your trade show asked you?
Well, we had the whole industry had a pretty serious shortage on certain chemistries, like glyphosates and stuff like that. And about midsummer, everything kind of caught up and the pipelines getting flooded. Obviously pricing is a big one. People are asking what the prices of products are. And the way we were tangled up off the port and stuff, phenoxies and several of our products have increased in price throughout the industry. And so that's a lot of it. They're asking what the new spring wheat varieties are. Asking, there's a little bit of December cash out there. I'm always after our salespeople to go after that.
Absolutely.
So we're just there to answer a lot of our questions. It's funny because carbon is becoming more and more talked about, but there's such a lack of knowledge. So actually that has been brought up a lot. I always get very busy. It's got a lot of appointments to catch up with people that were inquiring about it and keeping that program.
I know Lane and Mitch talked about it earlier this week, but I mean, for the livestock producer out there, I mean, you have a lot of seed varieties and forage varieties out there that can help our livestock producers raise more tonnage of feed for their livestock. Talk about that.
We've got our red rock barley, we've got some great triticales, and we have a lot of fun selling that stuff and getting it out on the ranch. That opens up that geography for us. And as I said, we've got our specialists, so when Katie or Lyle or someone has a customer, if there's comes to them and says, I've got to put in some triticale or something like that, what's going to stand the drought stress and stuff like that the best, or what's going to ton up the best. We get a hold of Mitch because Mitch is our expert. He talks very, very intelligently about our forage program. It's just amazing.
Well, Tim, you have an amazing team, not just here in the Golden Triangle, but across the state of Montana, several locations, and truly, if people want to learn more, I mean, we've been driving people to your website, nutrienseed.com. I mean, or they probably know where you're at anyways. Do you just encourage if they have a question? I mean, don't try to think this through yourself. If you have a question, I mean, you got a team of experts right at growers' disposal. I mean, I would have to imagine you just encourage to visit the website, pick up the phone, and talk to one of your guys, whether it's up here, down in the southern part of Montana, west, east, north, or south.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a great team of ag professionals.
Very good. Well, we very much appreciate the opportunity to have a relationship with you too, especially, and thank you for your wonderful sponsorship of the Western Ag Network's coverage this week from the Montana Grain Growers Association's annual convention, again jointly hosted by the Northern Pulse Growers Association and P&W Canola Association. And for more of our coverage, if you happen to miss any of our reports on radio or television, of course you can check us out online at westernagnetwork.com or even check us out on our Facebook page.